Grade 9. How are you guys doing today? I hope you guys are well and well rested and are ready for today's lesson. Today we're in lesson number 5. Lesson number 5 of our series of video lessons. We are going to be looking at neutralization. So before I get into neutralization, if you guys recall, in the previous lesson we looked at bases, and in the lesson before that we had looked at acids, and we had very good discussions about those concepts. Pax, Fortune, Tuxa, Susan, Ndailikana, obviously. You guys were there, and I'm happy that you guys have been watching the videos. For the other guys who have not yet watched the videos, please go and watch the videos, read the notes, submit your work, please. It's a crucial period. We don't expect you to just sleep at home and forget all the content. So now I'm going to be talking about neutralization, and the only way you're going to be able to understand what neutralization is if you've watched the lesson on acids and the lesson on bases. Okay, so what are our objectives for today's lesson? Okay, so for today's lesson on neutralization, we are going to, by the end of this lesson, be able to describe reactions of an acid and a base. Like I said in the previous lessons, we looked at acids on their own, bases on their own. But now we're going to look at reactions that then involve acids and bases. Okay, then we will also write word equations. That's what we're going to do. We're going to write several word equations for these neutralization reactions. Okay, we're going to write several word equations for the neutralization. Right, it's a process. You're neutralizing. Okay, so, and also by the end of this lesson, we will then be able to name the products of neutralization reactions, because there are salts that are formed. And there is a way that if we just see the reactants, we will then be able to name the products. Okay, so again, as always, you just take a few seconds to just look at your objectives, then compose yourself, then watch the rest of the video. So you just pause the video for about a minute and you go through the objectives. Okay, welcome back, guys. So on the board I've written the definition of the term neutralization. So what is neutralization? I'm sure by now, having gone through your notes, you know that neutralization, this is a chemical reaction between an acid and a base. A reaction between an acid and a base in which we have salt and water being produced. Salt and water being neutral substances. So the neutralization reaction, remember we said acids have a pH of below 7, pH from 1 to 6. Yes, I remember Elizabeth telling us what the pH of an acid is, okay? And I remember someone else telling us the pH of, was it Philemon, telling us the pH of a base, okay? So we already know what the pH of these substances are. But you will find now that when we mix, okay, when we have a chemical reaction between an acid and a base, I will just ask you, do you recall any strong acids? I hope you recall some strong acids. Which strong acids do you recall? Hydrochloric acid, sulfuric acid, these are strong acids, okay? Then if we were to react that strong acid with a strong base, okay? If you react a strong acid with a strong base, then you would have a neutralization reaction. And what would be produced? What would be produced would be a salt, okay, and water. But these products, observe, they will have a pH of 7, right? They will have a pH of 7. Why are we saying 7? If you recall, we said acids have a pH of below 7, that is 1 to 6, whilst bases have a pH of above 7, that is 8 to 14, which means we didn't account for who is having the pH of 7. And we are now saying the substances that have a pH of 7 are neutral substances. And we get them from a neutralization reaction, and we have a salt being produced and we have water being produced. If you were to take a pH paper and dip it into the water and then place it on the pH scale, you would find that the pH of water is 7. The pH of water would be 7 because it is a neutral substance, pure water. Pure water, that is. Okay. Right, so I also wrote on the board a general equation for a neutralization reaction where we say acid plus base to produce salt plus water. Okay, so we have what? So we have an acid, yes, plus a base to produce the salt and the water. Okay, so we have an acid plus a base to produce the salt and the water. That is a general equation for a neutralization reaction. Alright, so what we're going to do now is we're going to write now specific neutralization reactions using specific acids and specific bases. This will allow us to then get an idea of to say, okay, so when this acid reacts with this base, this is produced. Right, so I'll give you guys a small task where I will ask you to write a basic, it's a simple one, a simple neutralization reaction for the acid hydrochloric acid, HCl, plus a base, sodium hydroxide. Do you guys remember how to write the formula or the chemical symbol for sodium hydroxide? Okay, so for hydrochloric acid, it is like this. This is HCl plus sodium hydroxide to produce salt plus water. Right, so I need you guys, you're going to pause this video for just a minute, right? You're just going to pause the video for a minute and then you're going to complete that equation. Hydrochloric acid plus sodium hydroxide. I'm going to ask you in the lesson which equation I asked you to write during this video recording. I'm going to ask you this, and if you cannot tell me which equation I said, because there it is, right? So I'll ask you this question during the WhatsApp lesson, yes? Okay, cool. So please pause the video for 1 minute and do that equation. Okay guys, so I hope you were able to draw, or I'm sure you drew, I'm not hoping anymore, I know you drew, or you wrote the word equation and the chemical equation for the reaction between sodium chloride. Sodium chloride was the product. The reaction for hydrochloric acid and sodium hydroxide. Sodium hydroxide and hydrochloric acid. And what did they produce? We have the product in mind. I hope you got a similar product. It's the one that I just let out earlier because I was already having the answer in my hand. Sodium chloride plus water. Okay, so we are saying we have a neutralization reaction. We have a neutralization reaction where we have an acid, this one, reacting with a base. This is an acid, HCl, that is an acid. Like I was saying, if you have been there in the previous 2 lessons, you know that HCl is an example of a strong acid. And NaOH, the sodium hydroxide, is an example of a strong base. So when you have your HCl, okay, HCl reacting with sodium hydroxide, they produce for you a salt plus water. That is why we had a base equation which says, right, a general equation which says acid plus base to produce salt plus water. So when you're given an acid and you're given a base and they take part in a chemical reaction, then you know that you must produce at some point a salt and water. You will have your base, you will have your acid, HCl is an acid, then you will have your base, sodium hydroxide. Then they will produce the salt, sodium chloride, plus water. That is what they will produce. Okay? That is a neutralization reaction. So what I did is I also included a second reaction so that we also get another example, but it's only a chemical equation. That one I ended up including the word equation. If you look at where I'm pointing, that's the word equation, hydrochloric acid plus sodium hydroxide to produce sodium chloride plus water. That is basically the word equation. For the second equation, if you're looking at it, it's H2SO4 plus calcium hydroxide. Okay, CaOH in brackets and then 2 outside of the brackets. I hope you know how I got to that calcium hydroxide, but that was a different lesson altogether, right? Where we balance and we write the symbol for calcium hydroxide. So that is calcium hydroxide plus sulfuric acid, and our product is calcium sulfate plus water. Right, so the next thing we want to do in this lesson is to show that when we have this salt that is produced, this is the salt, calcium sulfate. Are you looking? Right, this is the salt. This is the salt. Okay, we don't just say salt and you guys say salt, you only think of table salt, sodium chloride, the one we put in our food. But for all of these reactions, okay, if you find yourself having sodium sulfate, calcium sulfate, potassium sulfate, know that all of those are salts. All of those are salts. So this salt, how do you get the name of the salt? That is something that I want us to understand in this lesson as well. How do you get the name of the salt? You get the name of the salt from the base, the metal that is in the base, because remember you have a base. You have a base there, that is calcium hydroxide. Yes, there, calcium hydroxide. So the calcium is the metal in the base, okay? And you join that first part of the base, the calcium, the metal part, and you join it, okay, calcium sulfate. So which means you then go to the acid, and you take the anion from the acid, the sulfate part, and then you join it with the cation part. I'm sure I'm going to have to explain this again. I'm sure I'm going to have to explain it again. So you take the calcium from your base, right? Or you take the cation from your base. You should be able to know what a cation is as well. You take the cation from your base, which in that case is calcium, and you join it to the anion on your acid, which is the sulfate. So when you take this part, this calcium and this sulfate, they come together and they join and they give you calcium sulfate. They give you calcium sulfate. If you look at the reaction, the first one with HCl as the acid, this is our base, sodium hydroxide. On sodium, just take this time to identify which one is the anion and which one is the cation. If you are looking at the base like sodium hydroxide, I need you to point on the sodium hydroxide which one is the cation, and then I need you to go on to hydrochloric acid, and I need you to point as well on hydrochloric acid which one is the anion. Anion and cation, right? Cation, anion. Okay, cation, anion. Cation, anion. So you guys will look at sodium hydroxide and you look at which one is the cation, and you look at hydrochloric acid, you find the anion, and then you join them together and they will give you the salt that you're supposed to produce. So just pause the video for 2 minutes and do that. Okay, hi again. I'm sure now you've been able to identify your cation on the sodium hydroxide and your anion on the hydrochloric acid. So if I can just point at it, if you are looking at the video, just zoom in, I think. Under sodium, that is our cation. Sodium is our cation, and the chloride in hydrochloric acid, the chloride is our anion, and it is a non-metal. Okay, the anion is a non-metal, whilst our cation there, sodium is a metal. We know sodium is a metal. So when we join them together, they give us sodium chloride. Yes, they give us sodium chloride, which is a salt. Right? So for your guys' homework, I'm going to read out equations that I need you guys to produce. I'm going to give you products that I need you guys to produce. And then it is these products, and you're not going to submit this work. Please. Right? I will only ask you for the responses when we are in the lesson. So if I hear anyone asking, when is the due date, we're going to know that you didn't watch the video. Okay, so I want you guys to write the the reactions that would give you the following salts, right? To produce, what would you react sulfuric acid with? Sulfuric acid with to produce potassium sulfate plus water. Sulfuric acid to produce sulfuric acid plus a base to produce potassium sulfate and water. Okay? Yes? So, I hope when you're listening, you write down the question. Those are the answers that I want from you. I don't want people submitting work. Right? I'll tell you when I need work to be submitted. So don't flood my inbox with when do we submit the work, when do we submit the work. First, watch the video, understand the video. Okay? Like now. So I'll also need you to tell me if you have nitric acid to produce calcium nitrate plus water. Nitric acid to produce calcium nitrate plus water. Which base would you have reacted your nitric acid with? Okay? Then also, if you have magnesium hydroxide as the base. Magnesium, I'm not going to write these things on the board. I'm not going to write them on the board. I need you to listen, and then you'll write them yourself. Magnesium hydroxide as the base. What would you react magnesium hydroxide? Which acid would you react magnesium hydroxide with to produce the salt magnesium sulfate plus water? Magnesium sulfate plus water. That is going to be your work, and those are the answers that I will expect to hear you guys giving me. Okay, so for this lesson, remember in the next lesson, again in lesson number 6, we'll still be looking at neutralization reactions. That's why this document is written lesson 5 and 6. Okay, we'll still be looking at neutralization reactions. Because here we've only covered a small part of it. So in the next lesson, we'll continue again with neutralization reactions. So by now, I'm sure we're able to describe the reaction of an acid and a base. Write word equations for neutralization. Obviously, we can do that now. And also to name the products of neutralization reactions, which are the salt and the water. As always, guys, you have been great. I hope that you watch the video. Watch the video, guys. Watch the video. Listen to the material. Read the notes. And you definitely understand. This is your teacher, Marshall A.C. Candiado. Thank you, guys. You've been awesome.